Welcome to Beneath the Brim, an interview series with state and national finalists of the Rural Ambassador Award. The competition highlights and celebrates young people who have a genuine interest in rural and regional Australia or New Zealand. The award aims to provide an opportunity for these young people to promote rural communities and industries. The award will identify and recognise the next generation of leaders who have a strong commitment to agricultural industries and an involvement or genuine interest for the agricultural show movement at either the local, state or national level. This episode features Tim Green, the 2018 New South Wales Rural Ambassador and runner-up in the national final of the 2019 Rural Ambassador Awards.
Hi Tim, thanks for coming on Beneath the Brim. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
In 2018, the land declared you the future of agriculture, describing you as smart, engaging, well-educated and passionate. So no pressure, but what's the plan?
What's my plan? Or you've thrown me off a little bit with so many compliments so early.
I'm only quoting what others have said before.
Oh, okay. So I'm currently studying my PhD. I'm working in the future of wheat in Australia, particularly in adapting it to climate change. So I think that's going to keep me busy for another couple of years and then hopefully beyond that. So that's sort of where my sights are set at the moment, but that might change. We'll see.
So you grew up on a merino stud, but you've ended up working in cropping, grains and cotton. What's wrong with sheep?
Oh no, there's nothing wrong with sheep at all. They're a fantastic commodity, food and fibre. You couldn't ask for more. No, I think my career in agriculture just shows the diversity that it's available in agriculture within careers. You can start in one section and end up somewhere completely different and still enjoy it just as much. So I'm not saying I'll be in cropping forever, but I'm also not saying I'm going back to sheep anytime soon. So we'll just see what happens.
Speaking about going back to sheep, though, in 2020, you did briefly go back home to the family farm. How has COVID impacted your family farm and your community in your experience?
Yeah, so I left my job last year to go back to the family farm when Corona was on. It was simply a matter of not coping with isolation and wanting to be around the family. But in saying that, they also were having extreme difficulty through fire, drought and Corona in finding workers and being able to afford workers. So it was something where I could go back and help them, and I had no hesitation in doing that whatsoever. And it was a really good experience just to step back and get back into farming. It's a good life. It is. There's nothing wrong with it at all.
So you've spoken a little bit about your experience with not coping well with isolation, and when you were sashed, I suppose is the term, the 2018 hatted the 2018 New South Wales Rural Ambassador and then the runner-up 2019 national competition. Mental health was an issue that you really wanted to use the platform for. Let's talk about mental health of young people in agriculture and rural areas. What's going on there? What are the sorts of issues that we're seeing?
Oh, look, I think the issue is the same as the issue's always been, Elsie. It's just a matter of the stigma. We have no real complaints or hesitations when it comes to talking about physical injuries. Like, I don't know, let's say you get kicked by a cow one weekend, the next weekend down at the pub or at the footy or wherever, people are going to say to you, oh, how you going? How's the leg? Something along those lines. But if you're struggling mentally, it's one of those things where people in the bush, and particularly men in the bush, just don't know how to talk about their mental health, and their mates, their friends don't know how to ask about it either. We talk about Are You OK Day. Are You OK Day needs to be 365 days of the year. It's just a matter of a simple question of checking in on your mates and reducing the stigma that's around talking about what's going on inside.
I think you couldn't have said it any better, Tim. I know in my experience, Lithgow, where I used to be located in New South Wales, unfortunately has one of the highest suicide rates in Australia. And the community really banded together and created the Walk and Talk, which was a monthly occurrence where the community get together and go for a walk and just talk about what's going on, how's your headspace, what's going on in your life type thing, with no pressure for you to turn up, no pressure for you to actually talk about anything, but just to be there amongst the community. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's that rural Australia is beautiful from the perspective of community is there, and it's sort of almost, it's disappointing, I guess, that we still struggle to talk about those issues when there is such a network there of support available, because nothing bands together like a rural community.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Our rural communities are what make rural Australia great. It's just that one slight little issue we've got, but I think we're making leaps and bounds towards fixing it, and I think it's leading towards a more positive future overall.
Yeah. So we've talked about mental health. We've mentioned COVID. You also mentioned a drought. Hardest question of the interview, though. What's the biggest issue facing rural Australia?
Yeah, I think throughout all of these issues we've spoken about, drought, corona, fires, which, God, they weren't even that long ago and they've already been overshadowed by so many other dramas, is just the support. It's the support that farmers don't receive is the main issue, I think. Be that in terms of government initiatives, but I'd more so say it's support from broader Australia. I think there's real gaps in knowledge and understanding of what goes on farms, and I think if farmers just had a little bit more support from their urban counterparts that rely on them to produce all of their products, I think it'd go a long way to helping farming in Australia, just that bridging that knowledge gap and giving our farmers a bit more support.
I think I've heard you say before at one point that you don't agree with the comment that you need a farmer 3 times a day. It's you need a farmer 24 hours a day because you like wearing clothes. So let's talk a little bit more about that lack of understanding and lack of knowledge of urban counterparts of what goes on in rural Australia and agriculture industry. And I'm going to throw you under the bus because in 2019 you wrote a column for The Land, and you said that country shows are a powerful tool to educate and connect social and counteract social media myths about agriculture, because as we know, social media loves to tell us that all farmers are evil and want to see the end of the environment as we know it. What do you see the role of agricultural shows in modern Australia?
So if I was really clever here, I'd have that article up in front of you, because that was probably something I put a lot more thought into than trying to just spin stuff off the top of my head. No, as I'm sure I said all those years ago, and I'll continue to say now, is our country shows are a fantastic method of bridging that gap, because they're a primary source of information is what it comes down to. You've got farmers there, and generally you've got the best of the best farmers there because they're there to compete, they're there to show off their produce, their wares, their animals, whatever it is. And so it's a chance for anyone, be they other farmers, be they urban people. It probably came across as I was very hard in stereotyping, saying that urban people don't understand what's going on in farmers. It's not necessarily the case that it's just urban, it's other farmers as well. And our shows provide that face-to-face interaction where you can go along, you can have a talk to other farmers in your area and learn some things, and learn it from the horse's mouth too, not from, as we mentioned, the dreaded social media, which it gets a bad rap as well, but it can also be a really fantastic tool for education. But mostly
absolutely.
Shows. We're here to talk about shows.
I mean, we've seen with social media the power of it being able to engage people outside, one small area. I remember the $1 a litre dairy campaign, and I think it showed that urban people do care about agriculture and they do want to engage. And if they're given the information and they're given, direct cause of action, they do it. We saw that Woolworths and Coles didn't sell any of their home-bred milk because city people were told, don't do it, it's killing the farmers. So I think that's also where country shows play a part in going, let us introduce you, keep those connections up, and also show you this is what you can do to stay engaged and stay involved.
Yeah, 100%. It's another medium. It's another tool in the box. And as we've been speaking about community so much, it's just a great way to bring a community together.
Yeah. So if you had no budgetary limit and you had all the volunteers in the world, what's the one thing you would add to agricultural shows in Australia?
Shows in every town. That's a pretty broad question with a lot of answers, but the money's one side of shows, but it's not why we do it. It's not why any show operates to make money. So I think you can keep your unlimited budget, and there's a lot of people that disagree with me for that, particularly the treasurers of every show society, but it's mostly the people. It's the people that make our shows run. And at the end of the day, shows just need volunteers. They need young people, they need people of any age to get there and to just lend a hand, because, some of those show committees, how many years have those people been sitting on them for? 20, 30, 40, the rest? It's hard work, and there's definite volunteer burnout. So, yeah, if you gave me unlimited volunteers, well, job's done. Shows in every town forevermore.
I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball.
Yep.
You're involved in the RAS Youth Group and the New South Wales Next Gen, both organisations targeted around getting young people more involved in shows. What do you think is the key to get young people involved in volunteering in ag shows to build up those numbers and get some youth on the committees?
I think it's the same as any job or role. All you need to do is give people responsibility and they'll love it and they'll take a job and they'll run with it. It's just a matter of whoever is currently in charge, regardless of their age, because I know a lot of show presidents that are younger than me. It's just a matter of letting other people into that fold. You know, they get really possessive over their shows because it's something they care about so much. They've got so much passion for it. If you want to bring new people in, give them a job, give them responsibility and go, right, this is on you. Do a good job of it. Otherwise, people are going to know and they'll run with it. And that's hard because you still do need them to come forward initially and to want to be involved. But I think if you can create a fun show society and a fun show, then it'll speak for itself and the people will come.
In 2018, when you were competing in the New South Wales Rural Achiever program and then was hatted, whatever, the Rural Ambassador, you participated in a debate, which is personally my favourite part of the New South Wales competition. And the topic was that studying agriculture should be compulsory in high school. Now, since then, the federal government has actually made it compulsory to study agriculture in some way in high schools. How does it feel like
You're welcome.
How does it feel to win, and why do you think it's a good thing?
I mean, I'm sure once again I probably stated it much more eloquently back in the day when I'd actually researched these sort of things. But you know, agriculture is the foundation of society. If we want to go really ancient history on us, it's always been essential to every society ever. It's only in super modern times that we've run into this issue where there is a bit of a disconnect. And if you don't understand where your food's coming from, if you don't understand where your fiber's coming from, how can you make environmentally friendly, economically friendly decisions if you don't have any idea of the process going through? So, yeah, I think it's fantastic that agriculture is incorporated into the syllabus. And as I'm sure I said back in the day, it astounded me that it was ever not a key component of every bit of learning we do.
What's the best thing about rural Australia?
The people. Next question.
Elaborate.
No, the whole theme, the whole focus of our discussion here is about our shows. It's about our communities. I think it's the people that make rural Australia great. You know, people. You wouldn't live out there. You wouldn't farm if you weren't. You just couldn't do it. It's too physically demanding. It's too hard of a job for too little reward. If our farmers didn't absolutely love what they do. And the reason they love it is because they're surrounded by great support, great communities. And I think and having lived in a couple of different rural areas around Australia, that is the one thing that's always remained the same, regardless of the crop, regardless of the environment. There's always great people and always great communities.
And you've mentioned you've lived in a few different towns, moved a little bit all over New South Wales, a bit like me. You're someone who could be successful anywhere in a rural area or in an urban environment, yet you've opted to stay in Western New South Wales. What keeps you in rural Australia?
Claustrophobia. I don't deal well in the middle of Sydney. You put me on a train and I just can't deal with that sensation of being surrounded by concrete and surrounded by people that I do not know. I'm used to being able to, say good day to the neighbours when you pass them on the road, you pull up and have a yarn. I need that strong sense of community in my life because it's how I was raised. It's what I've always grown up with. And I've never found that. I've never found that anywhere but rural Australia. So that's why I'm still there and here, and it's why I'll always be.
Well, thank you very much, Tim, for joining us on Beneath the Brim and making some time to talk to us today.
No, not a problem. Thanks for having me.